here, the Frugal Crafter. Today we are going to be making masks that you can decorate for however you want. Halloween, Harlequin, masquerade, theater, you can use them for whatever you like. I'm going to show you how to do a full mask like this and also how to do a partial mask if that's what you prefer. Decorating them can be the same way, however you like, and you can either use a mask form for this like I have here. These last forever. I've had these for over 20 years. I used to use them in kids classes, or if you don't have a mask form, you can grab a buddy and you can make masks on each other's faces, and I'll go into explaining how you do that while we're making this mask. It's very fun and easy and inexpensive. And then at the end of the video, I'm going to show you how to properly clean your brushes, because I've had a lot of people ask me lately, how do you care for your brushes? And they just wanted some basic brush care. So I'm going to put that in there. And this video was actually brought to you by Lava Soap. They're our sponsor today. I use Lava Soap every day to clean the ink and paint off of my hands. It works wonderfully and it doesn't dry out my skin. So I actually use it to clean my brushes too, ever since I ran out of my brush soap, and it is fabulous. So that'll be at the end of the video and you can check that out. But without further ado, let's go to the table and I'll show you how to make your mask from scratch and then how to decorate it. Let's take a look at the supplies we're going to need. You're going to need a mask form, or you can team up with a friend and you can make a mask on a person's face. You'll also need some plaster impregnated gauze. If you don't have this, you could also use plaster dipped newspaper strips, or you could use paper mache if that's what you prefer. You want to start by cutting the strips down to fit your mask form or the width of your partner's face. If you're using a person to make your mask, what you want to do is pull their hair back in a ponytail and use Vaseline over any facial hair and at the any exposed hair around the face so the plaster doesn't get stuck. Then you simply need to moisten the plaster strips, and you want to smooth it out with your fingers so that you get that plaster to kind of liquefy and get in all the nooks and crannies of the fabric. You can cut the strips smaller if you want, but I find this is fine for working on a form like this. So if you're doing this on somebody's face, you're going to want to cut narrower strips, and you're going to want to either leave the nostrils open, or you're going to need to give your buddy a straw, like a wide straw, like a milkshake straw, to hold in their mouth so they can breathe while you're doing this. Do not fully encase somebody's face in plaster without giving them a place to breathe, but it does work the same way. I will link up all the supplies I'm using down below so you can find them, and most of these can be found at your local craft store, so there's nothing too special. And I will put all of the alternatives of homemade supplies such as newspaper and paper mache, all those recipes, in the video description as well. I like to do about 3 layers of this plaster. I find that gives me a nice, sturdy, rigid mask. You really don't need more than that, and you could probably get by with 2, but I feel like 3 is a really good solid base. So if you didn't have this plaster wrap stuff, all you need to do is either mix up some wallpaper paste or thin down plaster of Paris and use newspaper strips and do the same thing, except I would do probably 6 layers if I was doing newspaper strips, because it is a bit thinner. Now don't skimp on this part here. Make sure you do smooth your fingers all over the plaster and you'll have a really beautiful surface to paint on. Now in this demonstration, I'm just going to show you how you would do a mask you would wear and how you do a half mask. You want to have thinner strips so that you can mold around the nose and eyes and leave the eyes open. So you just start off with a wide strip across the forehead, then do a narrow strip down the nose, and then you're going to build across the nose and over the kind of the apples of the cheeks area, just leaving the eyes exposed, and try to leave the eye holes as symmetrical as possible. And it doesn't hurt to go a little bit bigger on the eyes just to make sure the wearer can see really well. But again, don't skimp on the smoothing of the plaster, because if you don't smooth it down really well, you're going to have a rough surface to paint on and it just won't be as fun to use. But that's all there is to doing the half mask. I also wanted to mention, if you're doing this on someone's face, don't use paper mache because it takes too long to dry. So once the plaster wrap is set up, it'll set up in about 20 minutes. You'll want to flex your mold so that you can release it, or have your partner scrunch up their face, and that will release their face from the plaster so it comes off really easily. Then you want to take scissors and trim off any excess that you don't want to remain on your mask, and that's up to you. You could leave a rough edge if you wanted to, like maybe adhere it to a canvas and make that a mixed media art, or I would trim it if you're going to wear it. It's easier to do this while the plaster is still a little malleable, so I would do that about 20 minutes after you finish up. And then to clean up my work surface, I just shake off the excess plaster in the woods behind my house because there's nothing in there that's going to hurt anything. So now I'm going to give it a nice coat of gesso, and the reason I like to do that is because plaster is very absorbent, so it would just suck up the paint really easily, and doing it this way will just make my painting go a little bit smoother later on after it's dry. And there you can see the two masks. You can see how the half mask is a little rougher because I didn't spend as much time smoothing down my my plaster as I went. So really don't skip that step. Now, as far as decorating it, you can use whatever you have on hand. I thought that it'd be fun to do kind of a Harlequin style mask, like maybe for like a masquerade or decoration. I think that's a fun, beautiful, kind of theatrical look, and that's what I was going for. But you could totally do something that's more Halloween-y or superhero-y, or honestly whatever you want to do. If you're using this as a teacher in a classroom, you could do some multicultural crafts and themes, so you know you can really make this fit whatever theme you're using. And actually the masks forms that I'm using were from a set of 10 that were multicultural masks that I used to use in my classroom. So it is a really wonderful project for teachers to do with the mask forms because it's so inexpensive and you can get a lot done. So after stenciling, I decided to spray it with some spray ink rather than painting the whole thing, and that just kind of tinted the plaster really easily. And then I dripped on some metallic acrylic ink because that will help seal everything, and it will also give it a really pretty shimmer that will look really fancy and kind of give it that masquerade feeling. Since this ink is sheer, it's going to still allow my stenciling to show through, still allow some of that spray ink to show through, and I just think it's gonna add a nice richness to it. I just kind of spread it around with my fingers on the edges and then used a brush to spread it all over the rest of the design. This is a great technique for if you feel like your stenciling is too bold. You can actually soften your edges a little bit if you do it before the acrylic paint is completely set up. And now I want to dry this completely before I go on to my next layer of stenciling, and I'm just going to use these stars, and I'm going to use some gold. So I guess I was really influenced by kind of like French motifs like the theater and the Harlequin and Mardi Gras. I kind of had all of those those kind of motifs and influence kind of spinning around in my head as I was working, and I'm really liking the way that the colors are rich and metallic and come together. Making masks is really fun. I think we feel very I think working on faces, either portraits or mask making, I think it is really rewarding and satisfying for people. I don't know why, like it's just you just kind of go with your intuition and you know, create and decorate, and it's like putting on makeup kind of. It's a lot of fun. So now I'm using some black paint and a small brush to paint in the eyes. I thought that I might leave the eyes closed and do just some lashes, but I decided that I would paint kind of like eye holes, I guess. But you can do whatever you want. I decided I wanted the eyes open rather than shut and just lashes, but that's completely up to you. Just try to keep it as even as you can. The indents on your mask are going to help a little bit, but it does help just to kind of keep that in mind. Maybe turn it upside down as you're painting. That might help you keep it fairly symmetrical. And now I'm using some kind of deep burgundy color to do the lips, and I did do a little bit of black on the lip line because I wanted to kind of blend that black up into the top lip so it looks a little bit more dimensional, and then have the lower lip a little bit lighter, but it just all ended up being pretty dark anyway. But it didn't matter because I ended up glittering that as we go further along. At this point, I thought it looked kind of funny without eyebrows, so I just went ahead in that same color I used for the eyes. I used that black, and I just painted some eyebrows on there, and I thought it looked a little bit more balanced at that point. That's up to you whether you want to put eyebrows in or if you want to do it with some other media. I was just kind of thinking it looked a little odd without the eyebrows in there, and I recommend starting with like skinny lines and then kind of building them out, kind of fleshing them out as you go so you don't get carried away. Feathers make a wonderful addition to a mask. For one reason, they're super light and they give beautiful volume and movement, and they're really easy to attach using some hot glue. If you're doing this project with kids, you really have to use your best judgment whether they can handle a glue gun. I would go with a low temperature glue gun, or I would use thick and tacky glue because it has enough
a viscosity to it to grab things like feathers, and that way you don't have to worry about kids getting burned. It's just really important if you're going to do this in a classroom. I know some teachers watch my channel and get ideas, so I just want to make sure that nobody gets burned or injured. And then I just decided to use gold, purple, and black feathers because I thought they kind of enhanced that Harlequin Mardi Gras color scheme that I had going, masquerade scheme. And then you want to just kind of repeatedly flip it around and look at it from the front and see how it looks. You can also add feathers from the front and kind of tuck them in and kind of cover up any like raw edges of plaster or anything like that. It's you just want to kind of build it so it looks pleasing to you. I thought some tassels would be really fun because again it would give me a beautiful swinging movement if you're carrying or wearing the mask, and I'm just using a little bit of hot glue to attach that to the front. You can also you can trim off the loops from the tassels, but I decided to tack them down with a little bit of glue because I like how that line kind of brings your eye up to the top of the mask. Now the eyebrows seemed a little dark after I got looking at them more, but I had these purple stick-on rhinestones, and so I went over the eyebrows with them, and that's just going to give them a little, give the mask a little of shine, which will be really pretty if you're either if you hang that up as a decoration or you're wearing it and carrying it around at a party. I think that will just give it a little bit of glitz and kind of make it a little bit more impactful. Now this product here is an outliner. This came in like a Smart Art box a couple of years ago, and I think it was a mask making. No, it was a Christmas. What was that box? It was a mixed media box, and I did a Christmas project with it. But I thought this would be really great for outlining. If you have a hard time getting the paint to flow out of your fine liner, you can snip the hole a little bit bigger. Just go a little bit at a time in case, you know, until it's flowing good, because you don't want to have too big of a tip or it's going to be really, it's just going to put out too much paint at once. This is going to take a while to dry, so you want to make sure that if you are doing like a paint outlining like this, that you do this at the end of the day so you can let it dry overnight. And to tone down some of those black eyebrows, I just kind of rimmed the top of the eyebrow with that gold outliner, and it made it a little bit lighter and kind of fresher looking. So just think of how color and how weight of color is affecting your mask and adjust it accordingly. If you want it more dramatic, you can go with darker colors. If you feel like you want it a little bit more whimsical, you can go with lighter colors. And now I'm using just a little bit of matte medium here to adhere some glitter to the lips. I'm being really careful because I should have done this before I did the outlining. Since my outlining's still wet, I got to make sure I don't get glitter on it. So just keep that in mind. Your outlining really should be the last thing you do during the day. And I have a tip for cleaning up your work surface after you've done your painting. I would just take a paper towel, spray it with either water or cleaner, and then like a simple green or Windex, and just wipe down your mat. And that's going to kind of static wise pick up that paint and the glitter, and then you can dispose of it without having a bunch of glitter going off loose into the environment. So there's my glitter disclaimer. My mask doesn't have eye holes, so it will need to be carried. So I just took a 12-inch dowel and I am wrapping it with ribbon. You can also paint the dowel if you don't have ribbon or you don't want to use ribbon. But I'm wrapping it fairly compactly with some black grosgrain ribbon, and then I'm taking some gold lame ribbon and wrapping that around so you can still see little bits of black peeking out. And then at the end I cut the ribbon so some of it dangles. And then I just went in the opposite direction with some purple ribbon that was really narrow, and then I did the same with some yellow. And then I took a length of the purple and yellow ribbon and I tied it to the end of the stick where all the ribbons came together, so it would give it a little bit of unity because they were just kind of going off in all sorts of different directions. And I tied that in a square knot with just a little drop of glue underneath to keep that from sliding off. And it has a really nice kind of fringe to it that looks really pretty. And then all you need to do is adhere that to the inside of your mask. Now, like I said before, the hot glue might have some trouble sticking to the plaster, so try to get some glue on the edge where it's got some paint on it. But even with that, I did find that it held really well. I do like to twirl my stick in the glue a little bit just to make sure that it's kind of encased in the hot glue, and then I just used a silicone tool to help build that glue up around it. If you are using tacky glue, use a clothespin to hold that in place while it dries for a couple of hours. So just if you're doing that with kids, that's what I would recommend. And there you can see the finished mask. And now stick around and I'll show you how I clean my brushes after a painting project. The first step to cleaning your brushes is to wipe out all the extra paint. That's going to make the cleaning process so much easier. Now this is a brush basin and I just have about an inch of water, if that, in the basin. Now this basin has ridges for knocking off extra paint. So that's what I'm going to do. I have water in here like I mentioned before, but if you were cleaning oil painting brushes, you need to rinse that out in a solvent like turpentine or mineral spirits. If you don't have a brush basin like this, the next time you have mushrooms or tofu, save that container, because those plastic containers actually have ridges on them that will work the same way, and it's free. So just keep that in mind next time you are cooking. So after you have gotten all of the debris off of your brush, you want to let them sit in water, but you want to make sure that they are not fully submerged. Notice that I only have an inch of water in there, so the water's only going about halfway up the ferrule or the metal collar. What you don't want to happen is to have water get inside the collar there, because that can loosen the glue and make your brush handle wiggly. Also, I like to find plastic handled brushes, because if you're like me and forget your brushes in the water occasionally, you're gonna find that the wood will swell and your paint will chip off, and that's what happened with this brush here. I left it in the water too many times, and then eventually the wood couldn't take it and it just cracked all the paint, and I actually had to glue the ferrule back onto this brush because it was so wiggly, and there's nothing quite as annoying as painting with a wiggly paintbrush. Next, we're going to soap up our brushes, and I'm using lava soap because when I ran out of it once, I realized it cleaned as well as the expensive brush cleaner I had been using. So to keep my hand soap and my brush soap separately, I got a couple plastic containers from a discount store. They were 2 for $1, and I put my hand soap in the white one and my brush soap in the green one. And then when my hand soap gets down low, because I wash my hands with this stuff every day, I'll just put the scraps in the brush cleaning side, and that'll be fine for brush cleaning. So that's a handy tip if you like to use this soap. So the first thing you want to do is work your brush into the soap and then work it into your palm, and what you're looking for is any paint to be in those bubbles. As soon as you have gotten all of the paint worked out, then you can rinse off your brush and let it dry. The previous brush we cleaned was a hog bristle, and you can be more aggressive with them, but with these golden Taklon brushes, the hairs are much more delicate, so you want to soap them up by going with the grain, just brushing them back and forth on the cake of a soap, and then you want to work your fingers through the bristles like this, very gently, so you coax out the pigment but you don't damage the bristles or fray them at the ends at all. So you just want to be more gentle with this type of brush, but it cleans up the same way. Now if you have smaller brushes like these two here, you can actually wash 2 or 3 at a time of this size. So I'm going to work them around in the soap like I did before. Now this is a pretty aggressive cleaning method because that white handled brush was pretty trashed. I just want to get all the paint out of it, and then just work it in your palm like you did with that with the original brushes. So like if they were all really dainty brushes, you would go back and forth in your palm gently. If they're stencil brushes, hog brushes, you can work them a little bit more aggressively with the soap like I am doing here, and then just keep kind of pinching and squeezing the bristles until you see you've gotten all of the paint out of them, and then just rinse them out and either lay them flat to dry or put them tip up in a cup. I generally let my brushes lay flat on newspapers or paper towels or a rag for a couple hours, and then I put them tip up in a cup so they're ready to go the next time I need them. Now for cleaning your hands, what you want to do is obviously get them wet, get as much paint off as you can, and then grab your lava soap, and the pumice in the lava soap is going to help scrape all of that grime off your hands so they are nice and clean. And I use this every day. It leaves my hands nice and conditioned and soft. I don't feel like it dries my hands out like some other cleaners, and it's just wonderful stuff. So I highly recommend you have it under your sink if you are a crafter or if you get messy in any sort of projects. And there you have it. If you have any questions on brush care, let me know in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching today, and if you enjoyed this project, give me a thumbs up. I really appreciate it. Please subscribe if you want to see more projects like this. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, happy crafting!